Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the B&W trailer hitch receiver here on our 2023 Kia Telluride. Now, the Kia Telluride is a super popular SUV, and it's a little bit on the smaller side, so you can't always fit everything you want to, even though you can get all the people that you want to have with you inside of this vehicle. Now that's going to leave you with a couple of options so that you can haul all your gear with you, and first one being a roof rack, which our neighbor does have today, but roof racks are pretty limited on what they can actually hold. Typically, you're kind of set at a maximum of 165 pounds. So realistically, that's not really going to give us the strength that we're going to need to really haul some stuff, especially if you're wanting to haul maybe an e-bike on the back of our vehicle here. So that's where our trailer hitch comes into play here. And B&W gave us a great one today. This is going to have that same quality that you'd see from their fifth wheel towing products, which top tier, #1 in my opinion, and they brought that right on over to the trailer hitch side too. So this one's going to have a completely hidden cross tube, which is going to sit up beside, inside of our fascia here, so that way it's tucked out of the way, you don't have to see it. All you really just see is just our receiver tube here and our safety chain loops, which in my opinion actually are pretty wide and open here, so it's going to be making it a lot easier to actually hook up to it and pull that trailer when we are in need of taking our family out on that camping trip. So why don't we get a little bit closer and we can take a more detailed look. You can see we've got that 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is pretty much a standard size for most accessories out there on the market. So if you do end up having a 1 1/4" shank on your accessory, maybe that's a cargo carrier or a smaller bike rack, you can still get a reducer which would slot inside of here. You can pick that up here at eTrailer as well. And that's going to drop that down to that 1 1/4" size, but for all other things, you shouldn't need to have an adapter in there. Be able to just easily slot it right in and be good to go. Now, back to the talk about weight capacity. So with a roof rack, like I said, typically the roof on most vehicles kind of tops out at 165, whereas this has a 750-pound tongue weight rating. So when we put in our cargo carrier, we have a whole lot of capacity left over for all of that gear we want to haul. Now, do keep in mind, as you add more weight to the back here, we're now leveraging a lot more weight on the rear axle. You'll start to see some sag back here, and you may need to look into some suspension enhancement options, so that way you can kind of help deal with that sag and not put so much strain on the rear axle and on your tires itself. Now, also, back to that capacity, this is going to have a 6,000-pound gross towing weight capacity, which is going to be that force whenever we're pulling a trailer. So anything that's going to have wheels that are touching the ground and we're pulling on it with. And that is pretty good. It's definitely going to be above what our Telluride can actually handle, though. So definitely make sure that you're double-checking your owner's manual and figuring out exactly what is safe to tow. Now, when it comes to using accessories, there's a couple measurements that we want to also take into account here. And the first one's going to be our ground clearance. When we have an accessory in here, we want to make sure that it's not going to drag against the ground, especially if we're going to be going on a steep incline or decline. Usually you can have the shank bottom out and it'll end up scraping on the ground when you hit those, like I said, inclines or declines. So what we like to look for is about a 12" minimum from the ground up to the top inside edge of our receiver tube. And on our fit today, we're right at 13 inches. So we are an inch above that minimum that we like to see, but we still could need an adapter to kind of raise us up a little bit more depending on how low our accessory sits, because I know a lot of cargo carriers, once you start adding on a little bit of weight, they start kind of really starting to sag down just because the suspension isn't really designed to be towing as much weight when you have a SUV like this versus a actual truck. The other thing here is going to be our clearance for any kind of closing accessory. So if your accessory can fold up, there's a good chance that it could come into contact with either your lift gate or with the rear fascia. Typically the rear fascia is going to be the one that's sticking out the most, so you will need to probably do some more measurements with the lift gate, because as it kind of swings open, each one can kind of have its own arc of where it's going to sit. Now, for closing, we want to make sure that we're grabbing the measurement from the center of our hitch pin hole out to the furthest point on our fascia, which is looking like it's right around like 4 inches maybe. So honestly, that's really good. A lot of the time I feel like I usually am getting around like 6 or more inches needed. So what you're going to do with this measurement is take your folded accessory, have it already folded up, the closest point on that up to the center of the hitch pin hole and the shank on that accessory is what you're going to be wanting to look for. And if it is more than 4 inches, you should have no problem folding it up. just remember if you had anything on that you want to make sure that you take it off and close up any arms or anything like that on the bike rack or cargo carrier that could potentially kind of sit a little bit further out from where that measurement was. But that is pretty much going to do it on the measurements. Now, if you are towing a trailer, there are other accessories you're going to need. One of them being actual trailer wiring. Our neighbor today didn't opt for the trailer wiring, but if they want to tow a trailer, legally they need to have that so that way they can transfer their light signals from the vehicle back to the trailer so everybody else on the road can know exactly what their intentions are. Along with that, you're also going to need to have a hitch pin for your ball mount. That's not included either with a trailer hitch or with the ball mount. Usually you're buying those separately, or if you do buy a ball mount, usually it'll come with a standard hitch pin and clip, which you can easily slot in. And with this trailer hitch, you're going to need a 5/8 diameter hitch pin and clip. And then from there, I typically like to recommend going with a locking one, so that way you don't have to worry about anybody taking off with your accessories or potentially stealing your trailer on you as well. And then also, if you can, I like to get an anti-rattle one, so that way you don't have as much movement and play with whatever accessory you have in here, and it kind of cuts down on that noise. Now, when it comes to trailers, you also need safety chains. So I've got 2 sets here. Typically with your lower rated trailers, it's going to be the S-hook style, but some of the heavier trailers are going to switch over to a clevis style where it's got that clip on here too. So I like to do a little test, just kind of see how each one's going to sit in here and if it's going to bind up, because sometimes that can kind of play into how the trailer wants to tow behind you. But even with the larger clevis, it looks like no issues. These safety chain loops are nice and wide, and they're kind of at a nicer angle to really kind of grab onto them with. So you should have no issues. So in terms of installation, this is going to come in 3 separate pieces. You'll have your cross member and then an arm for the passenger and driver's sides here. Overall, super easy to put together still. It's just a bolt and a flange nut that you're going to pop on there and just tighten down and torque. So building the hitch, super easy. Nothing to worry about there. Installing the hitch on a Telluride, also super easy. It's honestly one of my favorite cars to get a hitch for, just because it goes on so quick. So this is something I definitely think you could do at home yourself, but if you just don't want to take the time to do it, maybe you don't have the time to do it and you got an important trip coming up and you need to get that trailer hitch on there, definitely feel free to use our dealer locator, and you can enter in your zip code to find a shop near you and get it professionally installed. If you are wanting to do this yourself and just need a little bit of a walkthrough, stick around and we'll get you there. To start off our installation, we're going to want to first remove our spare tire so we have some more room to work with here. I've already gone ahead and done that, and we're down below our vehicle here. Now there's going to be 3 rubber isolators that we're going to need to remove, but before we do that, we want to make sure that we grab a cam strap, and we're going to hook this onto our coil springs and just bring it across to the other one. Now this strap's going to help support our exhaust once we remove these rubber isolators, so that way it's not going to put all of that weight at the back here and potentially damage our exhaust. So to get the isolators off, I like to take some silicone lubricant. You can spray that on each one of the posts. So there's one right here back by the passenger side rear wheel, tucked away, just a little hidden. One here at the very end near our exhaust tip, and then one also here at the back cross member. So getting these off, you can use a pry bar. I have a isolator removal tool too, so I'm going to be using that today. And it's simple as just popping it off the post, kind of pushing the isolator out of the way. Now this one over here can be a little bit more challenging sometimes, but still not really that bad. And finally, last one out here. There we go. Now there's 2 weld nuts on either side of the frame here that we're going to be cleaning out first. So there's the 2 right here, 2 on the opposite, and I'm going to be taking some penetrating oil. We'll spray that up in there, and then take just a little wire brush, kind of clean out the threads in there. Make it a little bit easier when we go to put our hardware in later on with our trailer hitch. Now on the driver's side, there's going to be this plastic cover right here. We're going to need to remove that as well, because when we go to put our hardware in through our frame rail here, we're not going to have a lot of room to get up there and get to the other side of it. So there's going to be, looks like just 3 push pins, and then there's going to be 2 plastic nuts that are just going to keep spinning. Those won't actually fully come off, so you will need to kind of keep some pressure on this and pull down. And I do believe it's going to be a 14mm socket, but we can double check that in just a sec. We can get these push pins out, and I'm just using a flathead screwdriver. There's also trim panel removal tools that you can pick up as well. All right, so like I said, it is a 14mm socket, and you want to keep pressure on here. Get each one off. This one pops back up on it. There we go. So here's those plastic nuts I was talking about. They'll just sit there and keep spinning on you. So you have to keep that pressure on to get them fully off. But now you can see we've got plenty of open space. Here's also where our wiring is typically going to tie in. If there's a factory connection point, it's usually right here. It doesn't look like there is on this model, but there's also a grommet right here which we would use to get up into our taillights, because there's probably going to also be a plug-in kit or splicing kit option for you. That way you can just tie right into your taillights, have your 4-pole and 7-way come right out here, and then just hook right up, have it mounted up to your trailer hitch, so you got a nice convenient spot for you to hook into. So now it's time to assemble our hitch. I've got all my hardware set out, ready to go. We're going to have 8 of these 3/8 cap screws, and then 8 of our flange nuts that we're going to be needing here, because we're going to have 4 and 4 going for our little arms here onto the main cross tube. Now these are going to be slightly different if you're looking at them. You can see this one's got a bigger opening in it, whereas the other one's closed off. Obviously the shape's just a little bit different. Now if we're looking at it this way, the left side here, or side that will be on our passenger, is going to face just like this, with the L bracket side of this facing out, so that way it can butt up to our frame rail. So we can get these holes lined up, pop in our hardware. Definitely better if you have a second set of hands here to help hold it while you're kind of getting everything put together. Now we're going to use a 9/16 socket and wrench to snug each one of these down. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Then we can torque our hardware to spec. So now I've got Kurt with me here. He's going to help me lift our hitch up into place, and we're going to be taking our 1/2-inch hardware. We're going to throw on a flat washer. This is going to slot through our frame rail just like so, and then on the other end we're going to have another flat washer and a nylock nut to finish it off with. Now on the driver's side, it's not too bad, but passenger side, you have the exhaust in the way, and then you also have this heat shield up top. So usually the bolt wants to sit there and fight you. What I like to do is kind of press up on the heat shield. I'll get my washer past it, and then I can hammer in the head on my bolt the rest of the way to get it through, because the heat shield, like I said, it's going to fight you the whole way. So some a little bit more than others, but you can see already right now, just from me hand pushing that in, I'm kind of pinched here already. We'll come up over the exhaust. Pressed up into place, and once we get a bolt on each side, that should help hold it up. Right, I'm gonna have to use a punch and a hammer to get mine in a little bit more. I've got them, just the threads are kind of resting. All right, so just like I said, we're throwing on a flat washer, nylock nut. And we don't want to go tight with this yet, we're just getting it on there. Because we also have two M10 bolts that we're going to be threading into the weld nuts. We might need to kind of shift our hitch just a little bit, depending on how it really lines up on both sides. So on our M10s, you'll see I got a flat washer on there, and I also have a split lock washer, and then just the bolt itself. I'll get these started, and then I'll grab my ratchet and push these up the rest of the way. All right, I'm going to be using a 17mm socket on our M10 bolts. Now for the 1/2 inch hardware, when you're ready to snug that down, we're going to be using 3/4 inch socket and wrench. Now once you have everything snug, come back with your torque wrench and just finish it off. Make sure everything is properly torqued down. A little bit lower on the M10 bolts here, definitely a lot higher on your 1/2 inch. Now that we have all of our hardware properly torqued down, we're going to reinstall our rubber exhaust isolators. So I like to come from the front and work my way back. Just make sure you pop on all 3. There we go. And then we can remove our cam strap and reinstall our spare tire. Now one thing I do run into every now and then is with this, sometimes we do have to notch it for the 2 bolts that are running through our frame rail. On ours today though, they already have notches cut out for it, so made it a whole lot easier. We don't have to do that ourselves. So that can be one extra step you might find you have to do. But once we have the nuts pressed back on, and then we get our push pins back in place, that is going to do it for our install of the B&W trailer hitch receiver here on our 2023 Kia Telluride. My name's Kevin. If you still have some questions about what's going to be the right trailer hitch receiver for your Kia Telluride, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.